Hi, everybody. This is Dr. Mike Carberry with the Daily Alert with our ongoing webinars, bringing you information, pertinent information for this coronavirus craziness. One of the things that is really important to a lot of us as we come out the other end of this, hopefully that'll be soon, is that we're still standing. And we do know that this is going to be a tremendous economic burden on the United States. So I wanted to bring in two great experts on economics and your accounting and your finances and your just staying profitable and surviving this, and talking about the stimulus package that was just passed and how you can actually interact with that. So we're going to talk about the CARES Act. I'm first talking to Mike Halloran. I'll introduce him. Mike he started his career with Ernst & Young, one of the big four accounting firms, and he was in the New York metro region. He went to become senior audit manager, and then moved on to C.R. Baird, a large medical device company, and eventually became the chief financial officer, right, Mike, in that company? And then moved on to Audix, which was a company that became publicly listed while you were working there. And then moved on and became the chief financial officer for Brandon Dawson's company, Audigy. So welcome, Mike Halloran.
Thank you, Mike.
You're welcome. And sitting across is J.D. Frost. J.D. Frost is the co-founder and owner of Croft and J.D. Frost. He's been an accountant for 15 years. Their firm has been functioning for 8 years, right, J.D.?
Correct.
You started in Chattanooga, but now you have branches in Chattanooga, Chicago, West Palm, and Minneapolis. Mm-hmm. And you are the preferred partner accounting firm for Cardone Ventures, correct?
That's right. Yes.
Well, I've heard both of you speak on this. I know you're a wealth of knowledge, a lot more than me. So I'm going to ask you both for some forgiveness for my ignorance when I ask some of these questions. If I say something wrong, I'm proud. I'm not so proud that I can't be corrected. So if I say something wrong, just correct me. But recognize that all the questions I have, our clients probably have similar questions. So welcome. Thank you for being here.
Thank you for having me.
Okay, so this is some crazy times we're in. And I'm 58 years old. I can't ever remember anything like this in my lifetime. And you have to go back, I think, almost to the Spanish flu in 1915 to see anything that's even close to it. I'm not that old, so I had to look up in history books. But this is crazy. I mean, what do you guys think? Can you shed any advice on the economics of this and your viewpoint of it?
It's interesting, Mike. I've been in business for 40 years now, and I've seen my share of recessions over the past 40 years. But nothing like this that came on so strong and so deep. That's what's troubling. And so we're kind of in uncharted territory right now as to where this is going to go and what's going to ultimately happen. Right. And it into a little bit of what I'm going to talk about from a cash flow perspective and planning out your cash flow. But nothing like this as deep and as quick has happened in history, and that's what's troubling.
Yeah, I can appreciate that. The rumors are just flying, and I keep getting these calls from different people, and the banks, there's going to be a run on the banks. We're going to go broke. We're going to be socialist, everything. I'm hearing everything. So why don't we do this? So can you tell me more about, here's the question I'm getting the most. Okay, how do I cash in on this government stimulus package? I can't pay my employees. I'm going to go broke. How do I take advantage of this? It's called the CARES Act, correct?
That's right.
Okay. So why don't you just, if you could share us a little bit of what you know about the government programs, either one of you or both of you, so that we have a better understanding.
JD, you want to go?
Yes. Yeah. So every business owner right now should be familiarizing themselves with these programs that are within the CARES Act. There's about 8 different parts of the CARES Act that can be utilized. And we are in this place of uncertainty in our business, and we need to figure out how to survive right now. We've had this unbelievable, unprecedented event happen to where basically our whole economy just shuts down within a moment's notice. And so every business owner right now is trying to survive. And the way for them to do that is to apply the first parts of this CARES Act relative to these loans that are available. There is, number one, a PPP loan, Paycheck Protection Program loan. It's called
Right.
a 7A loan as well. It's related to your monthly payroll. That is the first way for a business owner to get some type of cash immediately into their business as quickly as possible. Now, we all know that government programs are very difficult to maneuver, and they're difficult to understand. And just this last week, they changed all the guidance. Within 1 week, you had the people that wrote the bill, the people that approved the bill, the people that made the bill law, then the Treasury regulation guidance, as well as the AICPA guidance on it, all have different interpretations of this. And so the next thing that I think people should do when they're applying for these PPP loans is to find a banker that they can rely on and that they can trust. Because what's happening now is each bank is interpreting this bill, this CARES Act, differently, and how they're going to loan according to the guidance on this.
Right. What my wife experienced, because we have several businesses, and she would get a application to fill out, and then they'd change it on her, and she'd have to do a different application. They changed it again, and then they said, just get it from your bank. And now the banks are all interpreting.
And they're all doing it different. Yeah,
Exactly.
That's correct.
One thing I do want to say is, conceptually, the idea for the government is to return everybody to employment. And if small business owners are saying, should I apply or should I not apply? JD had it, apply. Everybody should be applying for this loan. Anybody under 500 employees absolutely should be applied. And the reason for that is you don't know how long this is going to last. You don't know how deep this is going to be. So any opportunity you can get to get some support, and that's what the government's trying to do, is support small business so that when we come out of this, everybody's much stronger. So that's the idea here, is I would absolutely apply for a loan.
Yeah.
Got it. Now there's a couple things. Go ahead, JD.
I was just going to add to that, a lot of business owners are wondering, how long is this going to last? How long is this going to last? Do I really need this? I don't need any money right now. I'm good. You need to apply.
Yeah, I agree.
This is going to be a deep cut, a 40 to 60% cut in revenue. I believe that business owners need to anticipate that happening. And as long as you anticipate that happening and start running your business based off of those numbers, especially if you're in a non-essential business, then if you start operating that way, you will be able to last longer. And that's what a lot of business owners, to survive, need to start planning for that type of cut for an extended period of time, meaning 4, 5, 6 months.
Yeah. Most of our clients that are listening, and even our people who aren't clients, are doctors. So they're considered essential. But even with my practice, where we're still open in Chattanooga, and we're still, last week I was saying we were down to like maybe 65%. This week we're down to like 55%. So we heard you both speak last week at the 10X owners conference that was televised. And immediately from that, we got that message loud and clear. My wife and I started on that process immediately, getting this paperwork. It was just kind of strange because it changed so many times. But I guess you're going to have that, because we've never done this before. So that's the big.
This is unprecedented. I mean, it's come at us so fast and so hard. Everybody's adapting. My suggestion would be is literally don't wait.
So let's assume everybody's listening is going to do that. So let's cut into some of the nuts and bolts of this. You mentioned the PPP, which I heard of that, but then there's another one called the EIDL. You want to explain that to us?
Yeah, so the EIDL, the Economic Injury Disaster Loan, is more of a traditional SBA loan. And it's based off the fact that the president has elected that there's disaster areas. Now, all 50 states now are in disaster areas. And so this is applied for through the SBA website. You go to the SBA website, right up at the top, it'll say, click here. You're able to go to funding programs, and that's where you can initiate the process of applying for the EIDL loan. Now, that application on there, and we'll probably can include a link somewhere in your email here, that application, it says it takes 2 hours and 30 minutes. It does not take 2 hours and 30 minutes. And most people are a little bit intimidated when they start into these applications. If you literally just read through them, it will take you about 15 minminutes to complete.
That's what my wife said. So
yeah.
we got the two things now, the PPP and the EIDL. Can we talk about what the differences and the similarities are between these two packages?
Oh, yeah. So between the two, the PPP is the easiest one to get. It doesn't require any collateral, no personal guarantees. It's based off your average monthly payroll. And this is what a lot of people are discussing right now. When I say people, I mean the government, the guidance, everybody, the banks. Really, the most conservative approach is to include your gross payroll amount. I've heard some banks not including payroll taxes now. I don't know if you heard about that, Mike Halloran.
I did.
And so not including 1099s, only including the actual amount of payroll and the retirement benefits and the health benefits and any other benefit related to that employee that they receive as a benefit. That is the amount of money for your 2019 year that you can divide by 12 to come up with your average monthly payroll. That amount is going to be multiplied by 2.5, and that is going to give you your possible loan amount.
And that's PPP.
Yeah. To what JD's saying is, in some ways, you got to work with your banker, because I've heard some are gross payroll. So let's say I make $100,000 and I have withheld $25,000 between federal and state. Some are saying 75,000, rough numbers, is what you would get. Others are saying, no, you can apply for the 100,000. And then I've heard 2019 is the base year. And then I've heard 2019 a rolling 12 months. So no, you got to go through February. And then I heard one the other day through March. So what JD said very early on is there's a lot of confusion. There's no real set. Work with your banker to figure out what's the right answer and what the bank is willing to accept.
Got it. So then the difference between the PPP and the EIDL. Let's talk about that.
So the EIDL is basically a longer term, it's a longer term note. It's a longer term loan. The PPP has a part of it that allows for forgiveness. It's known as a forgivable loan. So if you spend that money within 8 weeks of receiving it on the proper items, payroll, rent, utilities, help me out, Mike, what's the other one? Payroll, rent, utilities,
interest.
mortgage interest.
Yeah.
If you spend it that way, then it will be forgiven. But this is the other part. Who's going to help you figure that out? Who's going to walk you through that calculation? Is the bank going to walk you through that calculation? The burden of proof of allowing for this forgiveness is on the client, on the customer. The bank's going to say, hey, I need you to submit the information to make sure that it's forgiven. So, that is the main difference between the PPP and the EIDL, is that there's an element of forgiveness with the Paycheck Protection Program. Now,
Right.
with the EIDL, that is going to be more traditional loan. It's going to be traditional underwriting. They're looking for a 640 credit score. If you're applying for more than 200,000, it's going to be a personal guarantee. If it's for less than 200,000, you won't have a collateral requirement. And it is a term loan at 3.75% over a 7, 15, or 30-year period.
Right.
So in my opinion, I think everybody should be doing the PPP loan. And then if you have a 640 or credit score, a 640 credit score or higher, and your business was operating well, like I'm sure y'all's businesses are operating very well, you have an opportunity to go get this 7B loan, the EIDL.
Oh, you're saying get both.
Yes. I mean, the opportunity is there. The PPP program only lasts till September 30th, or at least that's the date that's on the form today. They changed that date. It used to be June 30th. Now right. On the form, it says September 30th. So they're going to have to fund this program even more. And so what I'm telling a lot of clients right now is there is a sense of urgency to get this done for your business. But this isn't it doesn't mean that you have to stop everything you're doing right now to get in line. It's just, this needs to be your first step. This needs to be your first step, is apply for the PPP. Then go apply for the 7B or the EIDL loan. Now, you might not get the EIDL loan while you have money from the PPP loan, but the EIDL lasts until December 31st. So what I believe the EIDL is here for is let's use the PPP program to get a short-term loan that's going to pack a punch, that's going to get my people back to work, that hopefully we will be out of the shutdown by that time, and then have the opportunity to get some more financing if we need to, because this economy isn't gonna shoot up as rapidly as it dropped off the cliff.
Right.
It's going to take its time. I mean, who's going to be comfortable going out into the general public after all this, right?
Right.
I mean, I don't believe a lot of people. What I did hear, though, very interesting, and then I'll be quiet. Trump started talking about allowing for 100% deduction of entertainment and meals in order to get the economy going. What if he did that? That would be interesting.
You know what? That would be a pretty smart. Well, I'll join in that that benefit for the country.
There you go.
So, is there a circumstance where you wouldn't recommend doing both?
Not recommending doing both. Okay, so I've had a lot of clients. I've had some clients that basically they started their business in March. I mean, I feel so bad for them because they launched their business. They didn't have enough payroll support. So there's really no point in them applying for the PPP loan. They need to just go ahead and automatically go for the EIDL, even though that process most likely is going to take a lot longer. 4 to 6 weeks is what they say. I mean, I'm basically taking the deadlines that they recommend and increasing those. So I would say 6 to 8 weeks at least.
Right.
But most business owners, if you have payroll, need to do the PPP loan first and then go into the EIDL.
Okay, that makes sense. So then we talked about where to apply, but it's probably, I know there's people still confused. There's people that have been calling me up and saying, my bank says they're already exhausted on this. And there's other banks saying, is this going to be something that gets shut down fast because of the limited funds, or what's your viewpoint on that, and where should they go?
Well, they need to find a relationship that they can trust, a relationship with a community bank. It seems as though community banks have been a little bit easier to work with so far just because of the relationships. I do believe that a lot of bigger banks, obviously it's already happened, are going to start capping this, but also there's going to be another stimulus in order to fund these programs even more. I really hope that they don't come out with a new improved program that's going to change yet again. I think they're going to need to stay with these programs because the whole point, we really need to get everybody back to work. We need to get everybody back to employment at least for a little while in order for them to have money to spend in the economy. So, I think that I think there's going to be an additional stimulus in order to support that program so that we can all be applying for this in order to help our businesses.
Right. The good thing that, go ahead.
Well, I agree, JD. And the reason I say that is I think, it's been difficult enough to get this program going with all the confusion. Once they get it going, I would see where, let's say, the idea behind PPP is to give you 2.5 months worth of capital to be able to, you have very little sales. I see them worst case, probably best case, they're going to extend that. Right. So you got the program, you've got it under control, you know what you're doing, you've got it. I would actually see them extending this program if there's, and if we don't see the economy coming back out in full strength, which I agree with you. I say to my friends, 6 weeks from today, if they say to you, do you want to go out to a restaurant or do you want to get on a plane and fly somewhere? Most people are going to be, not really. I think I'll hesitate on that. Right. So that's
right.
It's going to take a longer time to come out of this. It's not going to be like a V as they wish. It's more of a U. So I see them extending this and doing another round of it, probably more likely than doing something different.
Yeah.
Well,
one benefit, go ahead, JD.
I was just going to say, and one other thing to think about the timing with this, I was talking with a community banker today, and he was telling me, I said, we have these applications that we've submitted, and now let's say that your processor picks up the application. From that point, how long is it going to take for me to get money in my bank account? And he said 2 to 3 weeks would be a very good conservative amount of time. So this program is really, really good. Once everybody gets on the same page, to Mike's point, I think they're going to continue it on because it's going to be a very streamlined way for a business owner to get 2.5 months of payroll, which is gold right now. I mean, that's the oxygen they need in their business. That's something that you need to pursue, even though you might be in line right now. In a month, in 30 days, in 45 days, they'll pick up your application, and then you're going to have funding 2 to 3 weeks later if your bank is still working on it. But they have to open it back up.
Yeah, I agree. The one good silver lining I think I see for our clients is when this starts to loosen up, I don't think people are going to, like Mike said, I don't think they're going to want to go to a restaurant or get on a plane, but they will go to the doctor's office, especially if they have a back problem or a knee problem.
Yes.
So the economy for our clients is probably going to bounce back a little faster than maybe many other businesses. So that's a good thing. So there's different things, like people are saying, okay, there's 2 different programs he's talking about here. I should apply for both. What do they need? What things do they have to come up with to do this?
To apply for the PPP loan, you need to find a banker.
Right.
That's real. I know we keep saying that, but it's just so critically important. You need to fill out your application and understand exactly what's involved in your payroll. So you need to, in my opinion, you need to contact a CPA, an accountant that you're using, in order to help you make sure you maximize that number as much as possible. And then you're also going to have to provide those payroll records, your Form 940, 941s, your payroll summary reports. You'll have to submit.
Yeah.
You're also going to have to submit a Form 4506. That is the transcript, to get the tax transcript for your tax returns.
So
the
best
basic
advice,
documents.
The best advice probably then is, since this is not what our guys focus on in their job, they're going to need professional help. They're going to have to stay connected with somebody like you or Mike or somebody that can guide them through this process.
Right. No matter if it's me or Mike or anybody, I believe I've labeled the top 5 things you need to be doing right now in your business relative to the CARES Act. And the first one is getting into a community of advisors that is going to help you make decisions, because we can get paralysis of analysis right now. We just need steps to take, and you need to get in a community of advisors that are going to help you make these decisions, take these steps, execute the plan, so that within 30 to 45 days, you've got a plan put together in order to put cash into your business the next 60 to 90 days.
Okay, got it. So the main thing that you said earlier, just so we keep it straight, is, especially for the PPP, they got to have most of that money going towards their payroll if they're going to get forgiveness.
In order to get forgiveness. If they don't get forgiveness, it's really not that expensive money. It's over a 2-year term at a 1% interest rate.
Oh, wow.
Yeah,
okay.
1%. I mean, that's so low. It's like, it's free money in a sense. You know, you got to pay it back at some point, right? But you want to get as much as you can, given the circumstance and where we're at. Just get as much as you can.
I don't think many of our guys do a lot with independent contractors, but there's some information here that I'm looking at that says that's a little bit different. Is that true?
So if you have independent contractors that you are paying, is that what you're asking?
Yeah, just there's some data I'm looking at that I'm a little bit confused by.
Yeah, trust me, the whole country's been confused by that. Before, there was guidance that said that you could include independent contractors as a part of your calculation of your average monthly payroll. But now there's more guidance that's a little bit stricter, that's saying that you cannot include your 1099s as a part of your payroll, because subcontractors, independent contractors, as well as sole proprietors, are allowed to start applying for this themselves on April 10th. And
now that
so
may affect our guys. Yeah.
If they are able to apply on April 10th, then me as a business owner paying them, that would basically allow them to double dip, is what they're kind of talking about. I'll be honest with you, as Mike was saying, getting as much as you possibly can I've talked to some bankers that have said, hey, if you show me, one banker said, if you write it down on a napkin and show me exactly how you came up to your monthly payroll number, I just want to know how you arrived at it. Okay. And that will affect the amount of money that you can borrow. But on the back end of that, if I included those 1099s and then they come out with this guidance later on the forgiveness part, it might affect my ability to have the loan forgiven. But me as a business owner, I really don't care, because I'm trying to get as much cash as I possibly can at this time to help my business survive. So it's a tough question to answer. And I believe that it's more of a case-by-case basis, involving your business, involving your banker, involving your own tolerance of possibly having to pay this money back.
Right. I've heard some rumors, and these are rumors from different people, that there's a possibility there may be forgiveness on the EIDL. Is that possible or no?
I have not heard anything about forgiveness on the EIDL. The only part of the EIDL that is a forgiveness part is when you apply, you get to check a box to request receipt of an emergency grant of $10,000. I have not seen anybody receive that money yet, but that if you get denied the EIDL loan, then that $10,000 is forgiven if you ever receive it.
I got it. Okay.
And by the way, confirming that, I haven't seen anybody get the 10,000 yet as well.
Okay. All right. So there is a forgiveness part to the PPP, correct?
Yes.
So with that, I have guys saying to me, well, I had to, I have employees I couldn't pay, and if I fired them, they could collect unemployment, and then I'll hire them back later. But they're worried if they fire them, that's going to disqualify them from the PPP. Is that true?
No.
No, it's not true.
No.
That will not disqualify them from it.
That's correct. You can lay them off and then rehire them. The whole structure is that if you lay them off and then you get the PPP loan, you would want to rehire them at that point because it would be forgiven. So the whole concept is if you need to, you lay them off. Then when we give you the loan, you go and rehire them at their existing salary so that amount would be repaid or forgiven. So
now, if you did that, even if you weren't able to get back to work yet, you'd still pay them. And that's the idea of this stimulus, is to keep those people with money coming in and you don't lose your employees. And
originally they gave a date. They said that anybody laid off through, and this is fluid, but anybody laid off between, I think it was February 15th and April 26th, you could rehire them by June 30th and they would count towards the PPP loan, right? But the idea is once you get that loan, you would want to rehire that person immediately. You wouldn't wait until June 30th because it would be forgiven. So if you lay them off on April 15th, and then you get your loan on May 1st, rehire them on May 1st, that amount would be forgiven because they would have worked for you prior to, and you would be able to save 3-4 weeks worth of salary.
So how about in a scenario where somebody had tremendous growth in the last year? I noticed in some of the different things I'm looking at, there's a couple ways to calculate your payroll burden. You could take all of 2019 and average it over 12 months, or you could do from January to February this year. Is that correct? Am I misreading?
Yes.
Which way is the best? I guess it depends on every situation, right?
It depends. I mean, the age-old accounting answer to every single question, right? I mean, it depends. I talked with a client earlier today that they were like, hey, I hired a bunch of people in January to February. I didn't have those people at the very end of the year. Which one should I use? Well, in that scenario, I recommended that they use from January to February as their average payroll number. When they go to their banker and the banker says, how did you come up with this? You're just going to simply show them exactly how you came up with it. They're going to decide whether or not they accept that or not, and then they're going to move on. Now, if you had a spike in payroll during that time, and then you got the loan, but then you decrease the amount of people that were there, like we were just talking about a little bit, rehiring people. If you didn't have as many people there, then you wouldn't be able to spend as much on the payroll. And so then you would have an element of unforgiveness. in that loan.
Okay. So the idea is if you were growing right up until January or February when this all hit the wall, you want to get back to that track as quickly as possible. You want to show that you're trying to get back to where you were, and that's where the finance comes in.
Right. The whole point is to keep us going the way that we were as soon as possible. Keep the payroll going so that people have money to spend it. Part of my thing is how long is this pandemic going to last? How long are we going to be shut down? If we all get this money and we're still shut down in August, everybody's going to spend it already, right?
Yeah.
Because they don't have anywhere to spend it. And so, but that's the idea. And so to Mike's point, you want to try to request as much as you possibly can. Anytime you're going to get money from the bank, you want to request as much as you possibly can.
Yeah. So that's actually what you just talked about is very pertinent to our clients, because the people that sign on with AMI are trying to grow their business. And typically what they end up doing is hiring a lot more people as they progress with the growth of that business. So a lot of our guys fall into that category. And I appreciate what you just said, and I'm sure they will as much.
Hey, Mike, one other thing, particularly in the medical field, in your medical field, right? And I work in an adjacent field, very similar. What we have found is that when you look at the business, let's say there's 5 front office people and 8 professionals, just as an example. What we have found is your 5 front office people usually have a lot less to work on, a lot less to do, as well as your 8 professional, we'll say. A lot of the times what we're finding, and it's almost a state-by-state calculation, but a number of states, those front office people or maybe even the mid-level manager make more money on unemployment than they are working for you. And that's because typically unemployment doesn't pay well, but the government has added $600 kicker every week, the federal government. So when you add the state benefit and you add the federal benefit, most times, or the level at what I'll call where an employee makes more or less, sometimes is somewhere between $45,000 and $65,000. So in some states, let's say it's as much as $65,000. If you make more than 65, then going on unemployment, you wouldn't make more. If you make less than 65, you actually make more on unemployment. So that was the idea. So they probably need to look at that to say, what's the level of work I have? If I don't have the level of work, they're always worried about impacting their employees and their pay. Well, a lot of them will go on unemployment and in fact make more than they would working for the company.
Goes back to the old adage, please don't feed the bears, right? Because if you feed the bears, all of a sudden they don't want to do anything except come and get the food from you.
Correct. So, but it is important because I know in the adjacent business, there's a number of them who have, in that situation have laid off their front office people and they've kept their professionals to work. And given the business is 50+% down, it makes sense. So
you're saying they could use that as an advantage in this crisis because those people won't be suffering making less money. They'll be making maybe even more. Correct. And you can pare down your staff to keep your overhead down while you're going through this crisis.
Correct. And that supplement for the federal government is through August 1st.
Okay, got it. So actually that's a good thing. And it's the first time I've ever said that about getting a handout from the government, that it's a good thing.
That is one where clearly it supports small business.
Okay, is there a process that people have to go to ask for loan forgiveness? I mean, what's the things they got to do for that?
Yes, so according to the guidance right now, whenever they get done spending this money, then they have to provide documentation to that bank. And I believe each bank will have different requirements for documentation. Just like they have different requirements for documentation when you're getting the loan on the front end. And so there's a specific calculator that is used in order to, or specific calculation that's used in order to determine what that forgiveness amount is. It also has to deal with the number of employees that you had to begin with compared to the number of employees that you have at the very end and what their salary levels were from beginning to end as well. So there's some additional reporting that's required for that loan to be forgiven.
So they're going to have to keep pretty good records on this and compare that to their old records. Interesting. I'm trying to anticipate some of the questions our guys are going to have. and you talked about the personal guarantee requirement. So what else could you tell us? Like, if you're going to sum this up for our clients, most of them are doctors. What's the strategy that you would employ? Be ready to go back to work, or when do you think you should go back to work? I guess that's, nobody knows that, but what kind of strategy should our guys be thinking about this, what the next couple of weeks is going to be like?
I think the strategy right now is to survive and anticipate that I'm going to have 60 to 90 days of decreased business, decreased by, at least 40 to 60%. And that I've got to start running my business based off of that fact. So if that's the case, then right now I need to go get more cash if I want to keep my employees employed. And if not, then I need to make some measures on cutting the staff until I get this funding, which most likely is going to take 4 to 6 weeks. Even if you turn in an application right now, if you're lucky enough to find a banker to move you to the top of the stack, which is probably very unlikely. So I would be anticipating trying to get funding by the end of May at this point in time. And I would apply through the PPP program and get connected with a banker and a professional that can help me make sure that I get this executed. Once you do that, then apply for the 7B loan and start that process. That's the EIDL loan, and start that process at that time. Another thing that people can be doing right now is if they have debt payments, existing debt payments with banks, they are going to be able to defer those payments at least for 60 to 90 days. And all they need to do is contact their bank to request that deferred payment. They won't have any penalties. The interest will still accrue on those debt payments, but those payments will be just added to the end of the term in which that they had that note payment in effect. So that's another thing that business owners can do right now that is available in order to maintain and keep as much cash as they possibly can to run their business during this time.
So deferring payments to the bank for a loan from that bank that they already have, correct?
Yes.
Yes. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. A couple other things they can look at too. In that example where we're deferring mortgage payments, we'll see, a lot of landlords are able to defer as well. So what you're finding is that a lot of landlords, I have one guy who has 7 offices. He negotiated with seven different landlords and was able to get half of all of his rent of his 7 properties waived for the month of April and May. So, if you have that opportunity to go back to your landlord and say, hey, obviously business is down, and some of them will work with you. So I wouldn't ignore that opportunity. There's one other thing too out there from a cash, and it's in the CARES Act, and that is you're able to get a loan from your 401k, or you take money from your 401k. Historically, if you take money from your 401k and it's pre-59 and a half, you have to pay a 10% penalty. They've waived that 10% penalty. You can take the money out. You'd have to pay tax, or you can repay that within, I think it's 3 years, 2 or 3 years. You can pay it 3 years. Okay. As long as you repay it within 3 years, you don't have to pay that tax on that and refund your 401k. Not a great thing to do, but if you're looking for cash and you need cash, 401k is an option. It used to be limited to 50,000. Now it can be as much as 100,000. So those business owners who have a 401k and need money, you can go there as well.
So you can defer your payments. You can talk to your landlord and try to get deferment on your rent. You can go and take a loan against your 401k without that 10% interest penalty, and it's now higher than it was before, 50,000 up to 100,000.
Correct.
So these are smart things to do. JD?
And another thing, and this is one of my favorite things that's a part of this CARES Act, probably because I'm a CPA, but is you have the ability to carry back losses from 2018, 19, or 2020 for 5 years. So if you're a doctor and you decide you were starting up your practice and you had a loss in the first year, or if you had any losses in any of these years, typically you can only carry back that loss for 2 years. Well, now as a part of the CARES Act, you can carry it back for 5 years.
So you can go back into those years that you made money and amend your tax returns in order to get more cash for your business. Now that is a little bit more of a process, but it is an opportunity for a lot of business owners to take advantage of that they weren't able to before.
And obviously they'd have to have a CPA working with them on that, because that's
Yep.
a little bit more complex, certainly out of my range of thought
Yep.
process. So,
But a
well,
simple review of those returns would allow you to be able to understand whether or not there was a big enough loss to be able to take advantage of that.
and then this is where the difference between a CPA who just does tax preparation versus one who does tax planning. That's what you do, right?
That's
Tax
correct.
planning
Yeah.
accountants could look at this and say, hey, here's an advantage. You could use this and apply this to now, which is why I've always been an advocate of having an accountant who does tax planning, because it's a smarter thing. And, you know, I can't keep up with all that stuff. Most of our doctors can't. So having somebody like yourself. So we were talking at the beginning of this before we started with the webinar, how you help people. So you want to explain that, how you can help some of our, because I'm sure there's people listening going, this is over my head. How do I get help with somebody like these guys?
Yes, it's a little intimidating. We've had some people come to us and say, well, I can just do this on my own. And yes, I mean, you definitely can. And you can get any professional that you trust, that you understand, they understand this and they can help you with it. The way that we're helping people is we're working with them one-on-one if they would like to. And what we're doing is a 6-month engagement where we're helping to consult with them along the way, applying each different part of the CARES Act to their business in a custom way for their specific structure, because your entity structure and the way that you pay people has a big impact on that. So we're helping people one-on-one in that way. We're also helping people in a group through a private Facebook group as well that I post information in. I go live almost daily answering questions. Those that are more their do-it-yourself kind of person, they are in there and I'm answering their questions 24/7 along the way. It's just an easy way to communicate and help people get answers to the questions that they have. I mean, a lot of time is taken in just indecisiveness. And so we're helping people make decisions during this time in an educated and knowledgeable way.
So how do people, go ahead, Mike.
Well, it's interesting what this highlights, and it's one of the things we talk about at Cardone. And what this really highlights is the value of keeping your books up to date and having a quality accountant help you. Because, you know, a good set of books, you roadmap yourself, you know where you're at all times. And today, if you had a good set of books, and I'm sure there's plenty of you out there who don't have a good set of books. If you have a good set of books, you know how much receivables you have at all times. You know when you're going to collect them. You know what payables you have. You know what cash you have. You're so much better when in situations like this, you understand where you're at and what you need to do. And then to have the professional who can guide you and talk to you and educate you on where can you go for cash or what to do or what's important from a tax perspective. So it's really important to have a good quality accountant that you're working with to understand, and particularly in times like this.
Absolutely. That's why with AMI and Cardone Ventures, we're forming our strategic business units where people will have access to people like that.
Exactly.
And JD, you're part of that as well. So that's why we're doing that. I mean, the stats that I'm hearing is less than 50% of doctors' offices actually have that data in an organized manner that they can utilize it. And that leaves you kind of vulnerable. I'm sure some of the guys listening to this are going, yeah, I'd like to get these loans, but I don't even know some of those things they're talking about.
Not to mention their bookkeeping right now is they probably got to go back and redo all their bookkeeping for 2019 and by month because they weren't keeping books by month. So what's the average payroll? I don't know. I've got to go back and redo the whole thing because I don't keep it by month.
Yeah, that's it's kind of
statements.
scary, but it's more than half the doctors. So I mean, So JD, you sure you want to help people like this?
Oh yeah, I mean that's who we help every day. I mean we're used to it, and I really enjoy it. I mean I had a client this week. He's been avoiding using us for bookkeeping for 1.5 years, and now that this has come about, he signed up for bookkeeping finally. He just said, "Fine, I'm going to bite the bullet. Let's go." Take care of it. And so we've got him into our pipeline and got him assigned to a bookkeeper. And now it's going to be, And that's what I think this is going to cause us all to be thinking moving forward, is we're going to be looking at our businesses in a completely different way and our whole lives in a completely different way, and understanding the fact that, man, these records, these books that we have, these payroll records, these forms that are required, they all really are important, and they're a very essential part of our business in order for us to run it more efficiently and to have knowledge of where we really are, rather than just chasing our tail around all the time.
Right. Will you be able to help them if they're having trouble with the bank they're working with now? Is that possible?
Yes. So that's one thing that I've been working a lot on. I'm a connector of people and as well. And so what we have is we have access to a couple bankers that have decided to work with us, with people who are our clients. And so I'm not guaranteeing anything from an aspect of something getting approved or anything like that. I'm not meaning it that way. But we have strategic relationships that are being put together right now, that the clients that are working with us, we're going to be able to work directly with those bankers.
I'm sure a lot of people are wondering right now, how do we get a hold of JD Frost? So how do they do that?
Yes. Well, the best way to get a hold of me is regarding the CARES Act, is I have a website. It's www.2trillion.club.com. That's the best place to get information about this, and also how to work one-on-one with us or be in the private Facebook group. Or you can follow me on Instagram at jdfrost.today. I'm very, very active on Instagram and Facebook. And another way to reach me is, if you just want to pick up the phone and call me, 423-503-6014. I might not answer immediately right now, but I'll get you connected with the team so that we can help you.
Okay, great. So I know you both have very busy schedules. Is there anything you want to add to the end of this webinar for our guys on the way out the door?
You know, for me, it's stay safe, stay healthy, and hopefully this passes sooner rather than later.
Yeah. And JD?
Yes, definitely stay safe and healthy primarily, but also I got to say, you got to look at the numbers. You got to understand and plan for this, and recognize your balance sheet is your roadmap right now. Your balance sheet is going to tell you exactly how long your cash is going to last, what kind of receivables you need to collect, and what kind of debt payments that you can possibly defer right now in order to survive over these next 60 to 90 days.
Yeah, and I think for most of us, not all of us, but for most of us, this economic part of this is going to be the biggest impact. Although I do have some good news I'm going to add into this right before we end. My sister is a nurse, works in a nursing home in the New York City area, and she got coronavirus. And so she was struggling all week with a fever and not getting any progress. So I contacted her and got her some of the things that we recommended in other podcasts we've done in the last 2 weeks. She started on it within 24 hours. Her fever broke. She's up and walking around the house today. She's talking about going back to work. So
That's awesome.
you know, these podcasts we're doing is giving real good advice that what you guys contributed today is probably going to be more impactful to our guys than actually the virus will be, because this is a survival of their business. And I know that it's going to thin the herd, but hopefully the guys in our herd are going to benefit with the advice that you just gave us. Thank you so much for being part of this.
That's right.
Mike.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right. Well, with that being said, we're gonna. I know you're both busy. I'm gonna tune out. Thank you for participating. Thank you to our listeners. Stay tuned tomorrow night. We'll have another podcast. So this is Dr. Mike Carberry signing off.
Thank you.